Équinoxe Television. We're broadcasting from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babylon Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, some ex-pro-independence fighters in the English-speaking regions of the Republic of Cameroon attribute their decision to join the armed struggle to frustration and corruption, which sends them to the bushes. And they were speaking in the Tombel, indicating that they joined the struggle because they were frustrated by so many happenings in the country. And they also called on governments to create jobs for them in order to improve on their living conditions and ease their reintegration into the normal life trend. And the commander of the 23rd Motorized Infantry Battalion urged others who are still in the bushes to come out and call for a constant collaboration of the population within the framework of efforts to restore peace and normalcy in the crisis-stricken northwest and southwest regions of the country. Out of Cameroon, Central African Republic is in a state of emergency. The 15-day state of emergency was declared after armed groups tried to take the capital Bangui hostage. Stay with us. Thanks, dear viewers, for joining us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. And we are beginning right away in Tombel, in the crisis-stricken Coupe Maningoba division in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, where some pro-independence fighters have said that they joined the armed struggle as a result of frustration and corruption in the country. Corruption and frustration as some of the factors which they highlighted as reasons why they decided to pick up arms and go into the bushes and start fighting for the independence of former British Southern Cameroons. They called on governments to create jobs for them in order to improve their living conditions and ease their reintegration into the normal life trend. And speaking to the repentant pro-independence fighters and the population of Tombel, the commander of the 23rd Motorized Infantry Battalion urged others who are still in the bushes to come out and call for a constant collaboration between the military and the population within the framework of efforts to restore normalcy in the two English-speaking regions of the country in a security crisis for more than 4 years today. Equinoxe has a report.
The 5 alleged separatist fighters in Ngusi now make a total of 15 who have dropped down their arms to regain normal life.
We at first say I'm serious, so this struggle.
I thought the struggle will favor us, but later I realized what we were doing was not right. We have decided to return home and reunite with our parents, brothers and sisters. I plead on governments to forgive us for the wrong decision we made, for it was out of frustration. I was supposed to be in the military, but because I could not bribe despite my past, my dream wasted.
For my other friends, what they did for back, any man get the own personal 15 days will not enter for our likeness.
We did not join this struggle because we loved it. We joined because our people were being attacked. So our reason was to protect the people of Ngusi. Our parents begged us to come out of the bushes.
They thought they did not want this particular thing for our village, and will follow their instruction to stop us.
Their repentance animates the chief of Ngusi village.
It's a wonderful thing that we are witnessing something that had never happened after the president's call for these fighters to come out of the bushes and live normal lives. Today we see them coming out in their numbers. We are now praying on the government to make them useful.
Same as the divisional officer of Tombel subdivision, who nods his head, President Paul Biya's repeated call to drop down arms got well in eardrums of the alleged separatist fighters.
Testimony of the fact that they have understood the value of peace. They have understood that the language of the gun does not belong to them. And you see, they have understood that the actions of the vigilante group in Nyasoso and Nyandong are favorable. They want to be contaminated with that spirit.
Now, Chief of Ngusi village and the represented repentant fighters expect government support to become normal and responsible citizens.
We beg government,
We beg governments to create us job opportunities to keep everyone busy, so as not to be tempted to join armed groups.
So that may not get mine for joining the kind thing again. If government
we will be glad if government helps encourage and boost our agricultural activities by granting subsidies and constructing farm-to-market roads. This will make other youths bounce back into farming.
For 800, that means we go at a loss rate.
If many of them are recruited, it will be a wonderful thing. Many should be recruited into professional schools and vocational centers to be created, in a place like this where they will learn useful skills.
Unfortunately, their reintegration will not be immediate as they must pass through the DDR center.
No, if you drop gun, you can go for farm. When you drop gun, you can't go for DDR center.
Knowing fully well Ngusi has been one of the localities hosting armed groups, the military in Tombel decided to create a base to ensure return of peace. Now that we are in Ngusi, know that our principal mission is to protect lives and properties of the people. In no moment should we engage in misunderstanding or conflict with them.
Qui doit avoir le conflit. Il ne doit pas avoir la rupture entre nous et la population.
According to Commander in charge of operations in Tombel, there must be preachers of peace.
Let this killing stop. Let us become good citizens of Cameroon. One, only one and indivisible. The military now here in Ngusi is not to harm the population, is to protect the population.
He gives a last opportunity to armed civilians still in bushes.
All you need to do is to do like your other brothers who have discovered that they were on a wrong track. Those who are still hiding in the bushes, we are telling them that this is the last opportunity for them to leave the bushes and come back in their respective homes and carry out the activities we used to do before 2016.
Crusades and quest for peace should be endless so that children should also be granted once again the opportunity to go to school, being one of their fundamental rights.
While the military fights to crush secessionist activities in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon, civil society and political leaders and even national and international institutions have called for sustainable solutions to the problems in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, calling for a dialogue that will bring everyone on board, including the secessionists and the secessionist leaders, to discuss a sustainable solution to the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and beyond the crisis, the Anglophone problem that has lasted for several decades today. In the meantime, traditional rulers are still targets in the southwest region of the country, and those of the Fako division are expressing concerns over the security after some of their peers were abducted and killed by armed civilians. They are calling on governments to put an end to the insecurity caused by the Anglophone crisis. Details in this report by Derek Jato in Boya.
Fako Division, one of the zones hosting African Nations Championship (CHAN), is having exceptional security concentration as the air, land, and sea seem to be colonized by special units to hit back any opposing idea or action. And the Fako chiefs in that enlarged executive meeting for 2021 sounded a note of warning and caution to their peers on security measures and to respect COVID-19 measures. Ndike Richard, president of FACO Conference of Traditional Rulers, called on the government to do more for things are still happening. For instance, while descending for this meeting in Tiko subdivision, some chiefs here were caught in the crossfire between the separatist fighters and the State Defense and Security Forces at Ombe along the Mutengeni-Limbe Road.
We are not safe. We are not safe for the fact that you saw what happened in Mutengene today with the council workers that just went down there. If not the God that was a fast intervention from the Mutengene unit, something best would have happened.
These president of FACO traditional rulers also begged on their children still holding guns in the bushes against the state to drop them and come home to be part of these numerous opportunities provided by the government. But there is another problem: misunderstanding within.
This institution should not be an institution of betrayal, because you stand in a position, you want to be a toughest person, so you have to betray everybody, you have to backstab them.
The administration too is penetrating into the affairs of traditional rulers to either puncture or weaken certain moves. Showing appreciation, Chief Etina Monono thanked his peers for electing them into the House of Chiefs and reminding them that they are in the House to defend their interests.
We can assure you that as we are here, we are going to do what the public is for.
This 2021 enlarged executive meeting of FACO Conference of Traditional Rulers was to review the activities of 2020 and draw a roadmap for 2021.
Security and defense forces are stepping up the fight against illegal business, notably the cultivation and sale of cannabis. This is a business that seems to be prospering, notably in the Bamboo Tooth division in the west region of the Republic of Cameroon. And recently, the security and defense officers arrested 2 widows who are accused of involvement in the marijuana trafficking in the west region of the country. Details with Fomi Amson-Sanda.
These 2 women will unfortunately not be part of the funeral ceremony of their husband, Nchinda Bena, built for this Saturday, January the 23rd, 2021, in his native Bachem, Bamboo Tooth division of the west region of Cameroon. They have been arrested by the National Gendarmerie in connection to the discovery of over 500 kilograms of Indian hemp in their warehouses.
We are here in a quarter called Bacham Sheferi. Gendarmerie received intelligence that there was so much Indian hemp being cultivated around this area. So we came and fell on this huge stock of Indian hemp. We have about 9 huge bags here, which are all collected from the houses which you are seeing in this area. Really a vast network.
Local inhabitants believe that the stock of Indian hemp belonged to the late Nchinda Bena, husband to the arrested widows, who was known to be involved in a huge network of Indian hemp trafficking. The women, according to security officials, have been arrested for protecting an illegal network of Indian hemp trafficking.
We're using this opportunity to invite our operations to continue to collaborate with the gendarmerie so that we can bring to book all those who have chosen to continue in dangerous activities.
While installing a Tapa Francois as senior divisional officer for the Bamboo Tooth division a few weeks ago, the governor of the West region, Awa Fonka Augustine, tasked him to do everything possible to remove the Bamboo Tooth division from the list of champions in counterfeit and the cultivation of Indian hemp in Cameroon.
Several persons have been rendered homeless and many others deprived of their source of livelihood in the Bonaberi Douala 4 subdivision and in Bonamusadi Douala 5 subdivision respectively by wild flames. The flames consumed the house of several persons in Bonaberi Douala 4 subdivision, and over 10 shops were reduced to ashes in the Bonamusadi market. Immaculate Fokwe has more.
Anguish grips the hearts of occupants of this house following a fire incident that destroyed the entire content of a building in Mapanda, Douala 4 subdivision. Mattresses, chairs, dressers and all electrical equipment now unusable. Part of the roof was equally consumed by flames. Witnesses say the fire broke out at about midday for an electrical fault that resulted from frequent power outage.
This mommy right away, not even day for a year.
The owner of this house traveled to the village when the fire broke out. Her kids were in school. We had no choice than to destroy the gate in order to have access into the building. Mapanda is suffering from acute water shortage, making it difficult for us to easily contain the flames. We made use of the water stagnating here after rainfall. We called the rescue unit, but they arrived late. Frequent power cuts has made us lose several appliances.
We don't get problem for machine them we don't burn.
Another fire incident was registered at the Bonamusadi market in the Douala 5 subdivision. Close to 10 tailoring shops were consumed by wild flames. Shop owners say the fire was ignited by short circuit. Goods worth millions of francs CFA were destroyed. They called me at about 6 p.m. that my shop is on fire and that I should bring the key of my shop immediately so they could try to remove some of my goods. But I live very far from Bonamusadi, so I arrived late. Everything is gone. Traders say several fire incidents have been registered in this market, with many of them pointing accusing figures on poor electrical connection.
Of Cameroon, the Central African Republic is in a state of emergency. The 15-day state of emergency was declared after armed groups tried to take over the capital, Bangui, in an effort to overthrow the president, Équinoxe Tv, and this measure has been taken in order to prevent the armed groups from overthrowing the government of the country. As well, across the continent, the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic has already claimed 82,000 lives. A roundup of news on the continent with Charles Gomez.
The Central African Republic has announced a 15-day state of emergency after armed groups tried to block the capital Bangui in a bid to topple newly re-elected President Faustin Archange Touadéra. Rebels controlling about two-thirds of the perennially volatile nation launched an offensive a week before presidential elections on December 27, trying to barricade Bangui while carrying out several attacks on key national highways. The state of emergency is considered a strategy which will allow authorities make arrests without going through national prosecution. Touadéra was declared the winner of the polls by the Constitutional Court on Monday, despite a very low turnout, mainly due to insecurity in a country caught up in a civil war for 8 years and still counting. On January 13th, the rebels launched 2 simultaneous attacks on Bangui, but were pushed away by MINUSCA, the United Nations mission in the Central African Republic. Since that thwarted offensive, no other attack has been recorded, just incidents linked to the curfew. On Thursday, the United Nations envoy to the Central African Republic said the country is at serious risk of a security and peace-building setback, and a substantial increase in the number of peacekeepers will give the mission greater mobility on the ground. The problem has been addressed to the United Nations Security Council by the country's officials. Meantime, Africa has recorded nearly 82,000 deaths due to the coronavirus in its second wave. The World Health Organization said this past Thursday that the figure is higher than when the first wave of the virus hit the continent in 2020. According to Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the continent has recorded about 3.3 million COVID-19 cases. The WHO African Director says that the WHO COVAX program aims to deliver 600 million doses of the vaccine by the end of 2021, as a total of 21 African nations have so far recorded a death rate of 2.5%.
The first day 2 matches in the Group C of the African Nations Championship is ongoing at the Douala Reunification Stadium. Morocco is playing against Rwanda. As of now, the score is 0 goal on either side, and Uganda is to take on the Togo in the second Group C encounter of the ongoing CHAN competition. Day 2 matches in the Group B ended yesterday on the draws, implying all of the teams still have chances of making it to the next round of the competition. Unfortunately, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Niger have players who have tested positive for the coronavirus pandemic. Manjika and Gabriel watched the 2 games at the Japoma Sports Complex here in Douala yesterday and compiled this report.
Hello, it's over here at the Japoma Sports Complex with the Group B games Day 2 encounter. It started at 5 p.m. with the Democratic Republic of Congo taking on Libya. Libya opened scores and of course maintained that lead right up to the first half. The Democratic Republic of Congo, who are missing 9 of their players alongside their head coach Florent Ibenge, who are tested positive for the coronavirus, were actually struggling in this game this Thursday out here at the Japoma Sports Complex. But finally, towards the dying minutes of the game, the DR Congo team came from behind and equalized, and it was a very, very important goal for the boys of Florent Ibenge, who was watching certainly from his quarantined room.
I could be satisfied better if we win the game. So because the goal at only in 1 second the goal was there. So yes, our boys play a good match, I think. We were afraid of the physical aspect of the game, but I think they are okay now. We should now forget about this game against Congo Democratic, and we should think about the next match against Congo Republic.
The second encounter of the day out here at the Japoma Sports Complex, it was Congo Brazzaville who were taking on Niger. Both teams had in their mind the 3 points of the day. Congo Brazzaville scored the first goal of the encounter and maintained that lead right up to the first half, and when they returned in the second segment of the game, it was through a penalty that saw Niger equalizing the goal. That is to tell us that a total of 4 goals were scored out here at the Japoma Sports Complex this Thursday in 4 matches already played in Group B of the competition in the African Nations Championship Cameroon 2020. We have just 5 goals that have been scored this far. Democratic Republic of Congo is topping with 4 points. We have Libya and Niger with 2 points each, and Congo picked up their first point this Thursday at the Japoma Sports Complex in their 1-1 draw. It will be important to state that the final day of this group will be very determinant, because even DR Congo, who are on top, are not yet sure to qualify for the next round of the competition. At the Japoma Sports Complex for Equinoxe Television News, Raoul Tabufui, Smart Njikan Gabriel.
Smart Njikan Gabriel ending the first part of this newscast. Talking point is up next. Thanks for staying with us. We are receiving a gender and child protection expert, Sono Josephine. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
You are the gender and child protection supervisor with the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services.
That's right.
And we're going to be talking about child protection, or better still, child abuse and gender-based violence in globally. Now let's begin with child abuse. A study carried out over a period of 3 years by the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services in partnership with a Netherlands-based non-governmental organization, Lillian Foundation, showed that in Cameroon, child abuse is on the rise, and over 50% of children have suffered various forms of abuses, with children with disabilities suffering proportionately more or worse. Can you tell us more about this?
Thank you once again. Just to say that in the research that was carried out, we underscored that children with disabilities experience 5 times more abuses or violence, adversities meted on them because they live with a disability, because they are children. And the research told us or revealed that one of the most reasons for the perpetration on children with disabilities is the fact that there is ignorance. Ignorance in the sense that there is lack of acceptance on the part of parents, on the part of the community, on the part maybe of the government to an extent, in ensuring that children are brought up in ways consistent of their age.
We'll come to that in greater details in a short while. That study was done in 2019, a little above 1 year after. What's the situation today as far as child abuse is concerned in Cameroon?
Honestly speaking, the prevalence has, I would say, doubled in the list, or to the least part of it, because given the circumstances prevalent in our context, we are in a crisis situation. There are a lot of children who have been rendered homeless. There are a lot of children who have been rendered parentless. There are a lot of children who have been displaced and all of that. And so the situation has been made worse because of the current situation that we find ourselves, the displacement, the redisplacement, and all of what's happening. And we have many children who suffer abuses at various levels.
Many of them, as far as the northwest and southwest regions are concerned, are now internally displaced persons. Some of them who have become orphans, some of them who don't even know where their parents are, many of them who are refugees in neighboring Nigeria and so on. Away from those two regions, what about violence at the level of homes in other parts of the country away from the crisis? We have seen reports where children are flogged in a very inhumane manner. Some of them plunged in water, in heavy containers and things like that.
At times, it's quite challenging to ascertain why such abuses are meted on children. We've had scenarios where children reported to our contact or within our facilities are being accused of witches, of being witches. And we have this study that was carried out in 5 African countries. And one of the reasons or the findings were that African countries or African culture, the traditional setup says that children are small witches, you know, especially those who live with disabilities. And so the belief is that when a child is stubborn or a child behaves wayward, I mean, when there is an onset of conduct issue,
supernatural cause.
Yes, it's always attributed to maybe casting out a demon, or there is a bewitchment and things like that. And so that's one of the reasons why children are being treated in those kind of ways. Another thing is most of the children are children who live with maybe stepfather, stepmother, or aunts, or with other guardians, and so they are treated as second class or substandard than the other children in the home. And so most of the assaults that they experience, especially physically, are because, I mean, some of them hear words like, "You join your late mother," you know, "I am not the one who killed your mother." So when they get these kinds of attitude towards them, they kind of develop negative coping mechanisms. And in developing such resilience, which is developing into conduct issues, they either start stealing, picking things that are not theirs, telling lies, just as a way of coping.
I wanted to open a little bracket there to talk about such words that are being used against children. You are a child protection specialist, and when what's like you're a foolish child, you're stupid, you are, I mean, derogatory words like that are being used on children. What's the impact on the psychology of those?
The impact is, I mean, that's a form of emotional abuse, and the impact are long-lasting. They are far-reaching. We've had children who have grown up believing that they are good for nothing. their children who have grown up never finding love, and that's how this attitude is translated as they transition into adulthood. And so the reason why we are talking about child protection is children need love, children need affection, children need someone to believe in them, children need someone to hold onto. That's going to help them to think differently. I mean, when they talk about child protection, it has to do with positive parenting. And most parents do not have what it takes to inculcate in their children.
And that's where the problem of parental neglect comes in.
Very seriously.
Some of the children are suffering because of negligence on the part of parents.
And away from that, we have some children who grow up in homes where the parents, they themselves are survivors. And because they are survivors and they had never been talked out of their experience, they kind of translate it onto the children. So we have had different scenarios, just like the findings of the research portrayed to us. You know, children get abused in the very context where they should be protected: in the school, in the home, in the neighborhood, at the playground, in the church. And you're asking yourself, so where else should children grow and where else should children thrive? And so that's why we are saying that child protection has to do with you as an individual, putting standards, policies, guidelines, and all of that. You as an individual, you as a family, you as the community, you as the church, you as the school, you as the nation. Put in these policies, standards, guiding principles, standard operating procedures, all of what we have, laws.
Let me get something. Let me get something which you mentioned clearly. When you talked about parents having the tendency of inflicting suffering on the children because of what they went through. Are you referring to the kind of situation where parents who suffered a lot in their life, or while they were children, while they were growing up, they went through a lot of suffering? They have the tendency of putting their children through the same process. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I'm just saying that some of the children who suffer abuses come from that background. Not all of the parents will come from that background. Some of the parents who suffer adversity in their childhood and grow up, and someone talks them out of it, they build resilience. They understand that, okay, even though I went through this as in my childhood, I don't have to translate that to my children. Look at a parent who says that when I was growing up, I went to school without having shoes.
Exactly. I wanted to talk about that. You know,
should your children today go to school without shoes?
I trekked several kilometers to go to school.
Kilometers and
no food the whole day.
Yes,
things like that.
And when I get back from school, I have to follow my parents to the farm without food until I get to the farm before I can eat, and all of that. Those were the scenarios back then. But today we have a different setup altogether, and so we cannot translate how our childhood was to impose that on the current setting. And there are a lot of other things. I always use this.
Very risky, exposing children.
I'll always use this analogy of a worker or a bayam salam. Most often I use my own person as someone who works in an institution. We start services at 7 a.m. and for those in the hospital setting, they begin at 6:40. Now, if you are getting up at that time, or let's capitalize on a bayam salam who has to be in the market to get the baskets of tomatoes and all of that as early as 5 a.m. You're at the marketplace and the children are back sleeping. You do not know if they get up early or not. You do not know if they wash their mouths. You do not know if they had breakfast. You do not know when they went to school, if they bathed. You do not know, and you're coming back home maybe at 7 p.m., maybe at 9 p.m. And most often you come back, the children are asleep. You do not know who their friends are. You do not know what happens in their lives. You do not know. And for those who come back and can have some time to talk with their children, when a child runs and comes to you, oh, mommy, you're welcome back, mommy, and starts crying and says that this is what happened to me. You just say, please, 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 I'm tired. And it's a routine.
Right. Beyond all of that, there is a major problem: sexual abuse. And this is, I think, more critical as far as children are concerned.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's affecting children, and even children who are young. We've had case scenarios where we have children who have been raped, they have been displaced, they're struggling with life, they are raped, and at the end of the day, they have to go through the knife, because we've been able to manage to keep them, to be able to accept and to stay with it. You know, a lot of them are thinking suicide. They want to either remove the baby and forget about all of that, or they kill themselves because they think, how do I even cope? Our home was burned, you know, I don't have any source of livelihood, I'm not going to school, how do I even take care of this child? There is no shelter and all of that. Some of them end up resorting to sex for survival, and that's what's happening in Littoral. We've had countless cases being reported in the facilities where we are here in Bopi and in Bonaberry. They are not only raped, some come, they are already pregnant. They have been driven from homes where their hosts were keeping them, because they are like, okay, we give you shelter, now you're coming with an added burden, you know. That's the kind of scenario that we have here, and so it's quite on the increase, and we are saying that we cannot sit and relax and life goes on. Douala is a place, it's been termed the land of the good, the bad and the ugly.
That's why the CBC Health Services has established a community practice for the management of gender-based violence and child abuse cases in Douala. Yes. What's that all about?
Underscoring the need for continuum of care for survivors, the CBC Health Services established a community of practice made up of professionals, frontline service providers in the Northwest region in 2015. We didn't know we'll be plunged in an emergency setting, but we had that because we saw that survivors need care, and care that is comprehensive and it's timely. So we did that, and with the onset of humanitarianism, we just had to scale the practice up. Now in Douala, we've seen an increasing number being reported in our facilities. So we said, okay, if this community of professionals who are committed in ensuring that children, survivors of GBV, who are child abuse survivors and all of that, can have these kind of interventions that are timely, that are holistic or comprehensive and compassionate, why not implement it in Douala and see how we can support survivors? And that's how we were able to bring in the Ministry of Social Affairs, MINPROF, the legal department, we have lawyers, we have civil society organizations, we have the PCC, we have Kananafor, we have Mulu and partners. We have a number of organizations here who are into humanitarianism, and so the benefits of belonging in a community is that we have a referral booklet. When we refer cases, we don't just say go to La Cantine like a hospital will refer, or go to the L'Hôpital General. No, we link. We have names of people whom you are going to meet, and these people are part of this community. And so when you're sending them, you're calling and you're connecting, and when they get there, they have services.
So how can a victim listening to you now benefit from the services of the community?
If you go to Mbopi Baptist Hospital, it's often called, it's popularly known as Mbingo here in Douala. You'll meet the focal point there, who is called Wilba Stephanie Kinila. Or you don't need to ask for her in person, but you can go there as soon as you get to the consultation, or even at the security post. You say this is your concern, you're coming because of XYZ. They will take you directly to the clinical manager for rape, or they take you to the social service where she is, and she will orient you and be able to link you up to the other services.
All right, we are rounding up. Globally speaking, what are some of the measures and strategies that can help put an end to these ills in our society today?
One of the things we want to talk about is the fact that the government has an upper hand. It's the government's role to protect its citizens. It's the government's role to provide shelter. It's the government's role to provide health care and all of that. But in a context where these are not being able to meet the needs of everybody, because the government cannot provide all of that, that's why CBC has stepped in. That's why we have humanitarian actors available. So we are saying that there is need to work in a community. When UNFPA comes in, because UNFPA gave us the support during the training, we are going to be establishing what is called a referral pathway, which is used in humanitarian contexts. That's going to help. But if the government doesn't put in place the policies, then we'll be beating about the bush. Policies are those, when we have a policy, we'll have what informs practice. But for now, we are using what is humanitarian inclined. But after humanitarianism, we need to have policies that informs how practice should be done.
Right, Sono Josephine, Gender and Child Protection Supervisor of the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure always. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Coming up next, Equinoxe.
If you suspect you may have a coronavirus